Okay, boys and girls, this is it. Last week. This is your last module that you have to do for 6th grade math. Woo! Yay! We're excited. All right, so just a little recap. 2 weeks ago, we learned about percentages and changing them to decimals and fractions. Last week, we used proportions and a second method where we took the percentage and changed it to a decimal and multiplied times the whole. Now this time, in this exercise, we're going to use similar methods to find the whole when we've been given the part and the percent. So last week, when we look at this percentage, we were given the percent and then we were given the of. Like we got, if we had 15% of 30, you would do the 15 here and the 30 there, cross multiply, solve for your variable. Or we could have done 15% is 0.15, of means multiply, 30, so we would do 0.15 times 30 and we would get the same answer as we get for this one. This week we are going to be looking for the of. So we're going to be given the is. We're going to be given the part and we have to find the whole. So we are going to start off the first one. 75% of what number is 48? Once again, we're going to do two methods. The first method is going to be using a proportion. The second method is going to be using decimals. So in this one, we're going to start off percent over 100 equals is over of. So that example says 75%. So I'm going to put 75 over 100. So 75% of what number, so we don't know what this part is this time, is 48. So that is belongs in the numerator. Once again, we cross multiply, and I always start with cross multiplying the part that includes your variable, so your variable ends up on the left. So 75 times x is 75x. 100 times 48 is 4,800. Now, to solve this equation, I need to isolate my variable, so I have to divide by my coefficient on both sides. So 75x divided by 75 leaves us with x. And 4,800 divided by 75 equals 64. So 75% of 64 is 48. Is that full sentence with everything involved. All right, so we're going to do a few problems using this method. Then we're going to go to our other method. So we're going to use proportion in this one. So for this one, we're going to use this method using the proportion to find the whole. So for number 1, 5% of what number is 10? So for 5%, I'm going to put 5 per 100 of what number is 10? So now I'm going to cross multiply. 5 times x gives me 5x. 100 times 10 is 1,000. I need to divide both sides by the coefficient of x so that my variable is isolated. 1,000 divided by 5 equals 200. So our full sentence for the answer, 5% of 200 is 10. Sometimes it'll also be worded 10 is 5% of what number. So 10 is shows me that I need to make that 10 be in my numerator. 5% of what number? So no matter how it's worded, the is always goes in your numerator, of is in the denominator, your percent is always over your 100. Okay, my next problem says 62% of what number is 31? So 62% of what number is 31? So is my numerator again. Cross multiply, 62 times x equals 62x. 100 times 31 is 3,100. In order to solve this equation right here, we need to isolate my variable. So 62x divided by 62 equals x. 3,100 divided by 62 equals 50. Okay, and then our last one using this method. 140% of what number is 35? So 140% per 100 is 35. So 140% of what number is 35? So when I cross multiply, 140 times x is 140x. 100 times 35 is 3,500. I'm going to divide by 140. Isolate my variable. X equals 25. So 140% of 25 equals or is 35. Okay, so the next method, that second method, like I said in the previous one, in last week, this method will work no matter what you're given. If you're given the percent and the of, you can figure out the is. If you're given the percent and the is, you can figure out the of. If you're given the is and the of, you can figure out your percent. So this method works even if you're not positive which way you should do it. This other method is kind of a time-saving method. And if you can remember that this one works when you are finding the whole, it works much faster. So we are going to start off by writing the percent as a decimal. And then instead of multiplying this time, since we're looking for the opposite part, we're going to divide by the percentage, by that decimal. So if we want to do 75% of what number is 48, 75% is the same thing as 0.75, something I can easily type into my calculator. So since we know the whole, we know this is 48 divided by 0.75. And that equals 64. So 75% of 64 is 48. So my missing number is 64. Okay, so we're going to do a few practice problems in this one together using this method. So for number 1, 5% is 10. Now on this one, like I said last time, you have to be very careful. When you have a percentage that is less than 10, when it's only a single digit, because your first instinct is going to say 0.5, but 0.5 is 50%. 5% is the same as 0.5. 0, 5. So make sure you have that 0 in there. Now I'm going to say 10 divided by 0.5. 10 divided by 0.5 equals 200. So 5% of 200 is 10. Or sometimes you'll see 10 is 5% of 200. All right, let's go to the next one. We have 4 more and then we are done. So this one, 62% of what number is 31? (62% of what number is 31? So 62% is 0.62. So I'm going to say 31 divided by 0.62. And my answer is 50. So 62% of 50 is 31. Okay, the next one. 140% of what number is 35? So 140%. When I say 140 divided by 100, I get 1.4. So I'm going to say 35 divided by 1.4. And I get 25. So 140% of 25 is 35. So that, if you think about it, that kind of makes sense because 140% means that my part has to be greater than my whole. So it makes sense that that number is smaller than 35. All right, number 4. 10% of what number is 14? So 10% is 0.1. And if I say 14 divided by 0.1, I get 140. So does it make sense that 14 is 10% of 140? It should. And the last one. 120% of what number is 72? 120% is the same thing as the decimal 1.2. So I'm going to say 72 divided by 1 2/10, and I get 60. So 72 is 120% of 60. Boys and girls, this is it. I can't believe that it's done. I really hope y'all have a great summer. Thank you so much. Thank you for those of you who have been working so hard. Thank you for all that you've done. I hope you have a wonderful summer. I hope you come and see me next year because, like I said last time, I have missed out on 25% of my year with you. So I would love when we get back to school for you to come by and let me know how you're doing, let me know how your summer was. And yeah, I just hope that all of you have a very blessed summer and everyone stays well and that we are all together again soon. Bye.